Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024. The time is 6:30 p.m. I'm John Dewanzik, and this is the regular meeting of the Avon Lake Board of Municipal Utilities. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. And if you have any comments to make, we have an opportunity at the beginning and at the end of the meeting for public speakers. Please make your comments in the comments section, and one of our staff will be monitoring that. With me here tonight are board members. To my right, Mr. Ricky and Mrs. Schnabel, and to my left, Mr. Abram. Mr. Rush is not available tonight, so he is excused. We do have a quorum. As always, a minimum of 3 votes are required to pass any motion that's made. All votes are taken by voice vote with the exception of a motion to go into executive session, one of which is requested for tonight in the event of the executive session motion. We will call the roll and poll each member individually. Let's see. Also in the audience tonight, we have staff members, Mr. Gibney and Mr. Urinich, and from City Council, Mrs. Gentry, Amy Gentry, Councilwoman Ward 3. And also in the audience is outside counsel, Mr. Bruce Rinker from Mansur Gavin Law Firm, and a guest in the audience is Mr. Nick Mondello of Lake Road. Did I miss anything, Mr. Monroe?
No, I think we're
Okay.
good.
Did I mention this is Mr. Robert Monroe, Chief Utilities Executive, and over here is Mr. Gregory Urinich, Chief of Utility Operations, and at the table with assisting Mr. Urinich is Mr. Jason Gibney from the water filtration plant. I think I've covered everything, and let's commence with the first order of business, which is the approval of the minutes from the March 19th meeting. Are there any comments on those from the board?
We have 2, we have a work session, and we have a regular meeting.
Okay, well, let's do the regular meeting first. Are there any comments on the regular meeting from the board? Hearing none, they're approved as submitted. Now let's do the work session minutes from March 19th. Are there any comments on those? Hearing none, they're approved. I'm sorry, Mr. Ricky. Thank you for stopping me.
No, I just have a quick question of Mr. Monroe. You know, I have done a little digging into some of these things that we talked about in our work session last week. And do we have any money at Fifth Third? Is any of the regional waters money at Fifth Third? I understand the city has a rather large bank account there as well as at Huntington. And I'm just wondering if we have any money at Fifth Third Bank that you're aware of.
That I do not know.
Maybe something to.
I will speak with Mr. Logan in the morning.
Yeah, I thought maybe he'd be here tonight, and I was going to ask him that. But that was just something that was brought to my attention, and I would just like you to follow up on that if you would.
Yes, sir, I will.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Ricky?
No, that's all. Thank you, Chairman.
So the regular meeting minutes are approved as submitted. I'm not finding, which is probably why I neglected them, the work session minutes in my package here. Thank you, Mr. Monroe. So is there any comments on the work session minutes?
That's what I just brought up.
Okay,
That was.
I didn't get a copy, that's why I
Okay,
missed them. Thank you. They're approved as submitted. I do review them before they're published, so I have an idea what's in them. Okay, next item is public speakers. As mentioned previously, if you're following us on electronic media, now's the time to make your entries. And anyone in the audience wish to address the board? Mrs. Gentry?
I just have one question, and it may not be the appropriate forum. The cough reservation zoning board issue that came before. Do you know if they would be required to bring the utility or the stormwater sewer sanitary across electric? May
Yeah.
not be the right forum.
Yes, and we can speak more in depth about that, but
Okay.
the short answer is, if there is a platted street that gets developed, yes, anyone that develops would be required to put in all of the utilities.
Thank you.
Thank you, excuse me, Mrs. Gentry. Anyone else from the public? Mr. Urinich?
No comments at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Next item is correspondence, Mr. Monroe.
I do not have any correspondence this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is expenditures on your goldenrod sheet. Would someone like to make the motion?
I will.
Okay, Mr. Abrams?
I move to approve Avon Lake Regional Water expenses from March 15th through March 27th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Abram. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Ricky. Discussion.
I-
Mr. Ricky?
I don't know what this items, Fund 701, items 37 through 40, those items there. The only thing that concerns me is not the issues there, but it's that we're at 37% of budget remaining. What is that category?
Yeah, that
Because it looks like it's a little of everything.
that is maintenance supplies. So it's, yeah, you're right. It's a general covering line item, but maintenance supplies could be, fittings that we use on a water break, valves,
Okay.
that kind of thing. We did have a couple of items that we needed to stock. So there will need to have a transfer into that.
Okay, I'm just making you aware
at
of
some
it.
point. But yes, Mr. Logan is aware of that and on top of it.
Okay, thank you. That's, I do have another one, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And I just want Mr. Monroe to explain it to me because I ask him this every time we run into it. It's Fund 749, Lorco. And it looks like we made a payment. You just confirm the 825,000.
Yeah, so what that represents is that's a transfer to the sewer debt service. The Lorco loans are the force main and the collection system. Those two loans are in our name. And so we have to make those payments. So the money gets transferred from the Lorco custodial fund to our sewer debt service where the payments are made.
We make 2 of those a year?
Correct.
Okay.
So those are budgeted transfers that are in our
Does this-
approved budgets.
Does this add to the tally on Lorco then?
No.
We're making it?
No,
Or-
no, it does not, because this is money from that custodial
Okay,
fund.
from the custodial fund,
Correct.
so this doesn't add to that.
This specific expense is not
Thank you.
adding to what they owe us.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Abram, you had some.
Yeah, I just had a question from Mr. Monroe about number 38 and the water main break on Lake Road. What was the cause for that?
The pipe, there was, it had corroded there.
Just one house?
Yeah, it was in front of that house, that address.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Abram. Mr. Ricky, you did cover 2 of the ones that I have.
Oh,
I have a
okay.
number of them because I see some unusual activity and like to get,
Well, I have to get that explanation twice a year from Mr. Monroe,
yeah.
what we're
well,
doing there with that kind of money, and I just wasn't sure.
We have a new system, for approving budgets and so on with Mr. Logan here, and some things are going on, I assume, because of that.
Yeah.
And I want to ask about them. But anyway, I think the first one after the first page is, you got that one there. No, I think that does cover it. There's another one, just like the one you were asking about with the concrete that is on a different page, but I think we're good. So
Number 72 on 701 is also a transfer similar to,
you're right.
So
I
we'll
missed
go.
it.
There it
I did
is.
have it
Yeah.
circled,
yes.
but so transfer to water debt service. Is that what that is?
That is correct.
So I
So
was wondering what Woods was. So
yes, WDS is short for Water Debt Service.
Gotcha.
So that is the first transfer. It brings that debt service account into the positive, because there will be, because there was a payment made in January.
Okay.
And this next payment will be made in July. So there will be another transfer, later this year.
okay. Anyone else with comments on the expenditures? Hearing none, we'll close the discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
They are approved. Okay, next item is York Street Emergency Sewer Repair. That's a Mr. Monroe item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an information item for the board on York Street, just to the west of Moore Road. During preventative sewer inspections using our new camera truck, staff came across one of the houses had a cross connection, that their sanitary sewer was connected to the storm sewer. When they went in further, or I should say they could not get in further because of the condition of the existing sanitary sewer. It was old vitrified clay, what we refer to as butt joint, meaning there's no sealing of the joints. The joints just, when they're laid, the pipe ends are laid right up to each other, butt up against each other. That pipe was laid in the 1960s, early 1960s, and it was in poor condition. There was several leaking spots. So we did have a health and safety risk for the benefit of the public. So we did make the determination to replace approximately 230 feet. Is that approximate of sanitary sewer? We immediately contacted John Liskovic, the city's public works director, and he reached out to Mayor Spetzel because we were going to disturb our area of asphalt on that road for our emergency repair. The road was not in very good shape, the entire road. So they made the decision to pave from tree lawn to tree lawn, pave the entire street. And we will cost share on that.
Over what distance?
It's a little further because they decided to go all the way to the intersection at Moore on York. So I believe it's about 300 feet of paving by the width of the street. And that work, all the work is completed. It was completed in 3 days last week, except for the paving because the asphalt plants are not open yet. They will, what we're told right now, ODOT is one of the largest users of asphalt at the plants, and they typically like to have them open by April 15th. So within the next few weeks, we will see that street paved.
Couldn't ODOT install some of the potholes and leave asphalt for us? Well,
I'm sure they would.
Anyway,
Yes.
as far as this particular project is concerned, Mr. Monroe, we recently, over the past 20 years, did sewer separation, so on and so forth. This property's cross connection, as you put it, was that overlooked in the surveying for sewer separation, or was it actually an unseparated sewer, and so on and so forth?
So the sewer was separated. Where we think the cross connection came from was back in the 90s. The city did a stormwater project, and because there's a higher storm sewer and a lower, there's two storm sewer pipes out there. And there
Should
was,
there be?
yeah, that's not uncommon, that they would leave a higher sewer in that some are already connected to, and then they have a lower one that they would tie into the same outlets. There was a stub for the sanitary lateral that we found, it just was not connected to the right main. And that was, again, that was not a project that we had done. It was a project that the city did. But it's, you know, that was not a combined sewer street, so to speak. So during our recent sewer separations in 2016, 17, 18, 19, we wouldn't have done an inspection there based on the age of the house. The house, and when it was built, it would have been separated.
Okay. So it wasn't anything where we can go back to one of our installers and said, hey, you know, swat them on the nose with the newspaper.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
wasn't that? So it's like some, let's say, older faulty construction.
Yes. And I mean, we try to be realistic. I'm sure that there are other cross connections, and that's the whole point of us having our camera truck out there doing our proactive sewer maintenance. And our goal is ultimately to get rid of all of them. So.
Okay, it's all better now.
It is. We had reached out to 2 emergency contractors to give us, you know, proposals on the emergency work. One was not available to do the work, so we went with KMU. Roughly, the cost of our cost with KMU is going to be around $35,000. We did procure under our supplies bid contract all of the materials from Core and Main. So we will have some expense there, and then whatever our split is on the paving, which I believe the quote that was given was around $25,000, $26,000. So we would split that with the city. But we do have that amount of money in our construction budget, so we don't need to take any action on moving any funds around at this point.
Okay. Anyone else with questions on this item for Mr. Monroe? All right, then let's move on to the fluoride equipment grant.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pleased to report that with our upcoming improvements at the water filtration plant, our fluoride system will be upgraded. Total cost of that system upgrade is $580,000 per our contract with Great Lakes Construction. There was a grant that was made available from the Ohio Department of Health, and I'd like to thank Mr. Gibney for taking the initiative and leading that, submitting an application for that grant. We had a total of $78,965 of equipment that would be eligible under that grant, and we did receive $25,000. So he has been working with the Department of Health on that. So every little bit helps, and that is grant money that we will not have to pay back. So.
Okay, Mr. Ricky, you have a
Yeah.
question?
580,000. Are we building a building or what?
Yes, it's a prefabbed building.
Okay, that
Yes.
seems like an awful lot of money for a feed system. Where is this going to be located?
Right over by the orthophosphate feed. When that system was put in, there was provisions put in for future fluoride systems.
Where is it now?
Second floor, just outside of the
Yes.
laboratory.
I guess I've never noticed it or nobody pointed it out to me.
Okay.
Okay. So this is going to be a separate building. So it's not just a feed system.
Correct.
And that's why the equipment was 78,000, not 580,000.
Correct.
Gotcha. I'm just had to make sure I understood what all that money was for. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, is there any other questions on that item?
No.
Okay, no need for action on that. Comprehensive master plan, Mr. Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you recall, in early January, we did issue a request for qualification, RFQ, for firms that were interested in completing a update for our comprehensive master plan for the water filtration plant and also our water distribution system. We received proposals from 2 firms, Stantec and HDR. And after reviewing the proposals, our selection selection team chose Stantec as the firm to complete this master plan. We've worked with Stantec on a project scope and fee, and we are presenting that tonight for the board's consideration. Some of the items that will be included in this master plan are growth projections for Avon Lake, growth projections for all of our bulk customers. As we know, in Lorain County, we're seeing a lot of development, and we serve a large portion of that. And a updated capital improvement plan for our entire water system, and also a capital improvement plan for the ETLs as well. And we'll be looking at 5 and 10-year needs for that. We'll also be looking at the plan for increasing the capacity at the water filtration plant, and also along with increasing capacity at the water filtration plant, we'll also be increasing our residuals that are generated during our process that currently we send to our wastewater treatment plant. So that is a planning component that if we're going to increase capacity, we will have increased residuals, and we need to account for that on the sewer side. So those are a few of the items that will be included. The projected timeline for this from a notice to proceed is 9 months. So it would be completed towards the end of this year. And so we do have a recommended motion. The not to exceed amount of this master plan is $277,910.90. The cost associated with this was included. We had included $300,000 in our 2024 water budget. So it did come in a little under what we anticipated. So with that, we do have a recommended motion for this evening.
Okay, before we get to the motion, you had sent us in a separate cover the scope of work for professional engineering services. I'm sure the board has reviewed that and has some questions before we proceed with the vote. Yes,
I have one question.
yes, go ahead.
On the page 3, the elevated storage tank siting.
What page are you on?
Page 3,
Page 3.
elevated storage tank siting. Do we anticipate building a new water tower?
That component, Mr. Abram, is going to relate to our ETLs. And
So
that
farther.
that is so not specifically in Avon Lake, but that is a need and a want that several of our bulk customers have expressed to us at our consortium meetings. So while we're doing this plan, we will include that as part of our planning.
If I'm not mistaken, North Ridgeville in particular was interested in that.
Yes, you are correct. And Rural Lorain County Water Authority has also expressed the interest in it as well. So
the locations that they have.
correct. And a good point to that, though, is any of the components of this master plan that relate to the ETLs will be billed accordingly to the ETL funds, just like we did on our risk and resiliency plan. And when we did the design on the ETLs and design on the water plant, we bear the costs of the design on the water plant. The ETLs funds pay for the design on the ETLs. So it'll be the same on this master plan as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Ricky.
Yeah, this was put together by the contractor or us or
Yes,
both?
both. It was based on our
Bid request.
our RFQ,
Okay.
and then we did have a meeting with them that we really went through and talked about the items that we want to make sure.
So everything we
included.
want is on this.
Yes.
Okay, I
Yes.
just wasn't sure if this was their proposal or if this was
No.
put together with joint input.
Yes, it was.
So
It
this is what
absolutely
you're
was.
looking for. Okay.
Yes.
It was very well done. There's a lot of work to do here. That's for sure.
Mhm.
A lot of work to do. I'm kind of interested in the 4 candidate locations for new remote water filtration plant.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
find me
that's-
4 spots in Avon Lake to
Um,
build.
That's something that I wanted to query about.
Boy, I'll tell you, John, you and I are on the same page today.
We are,
Yeah, I'm telling you, great minds think alike.
right.
But I just saw that on here and I kind of wondered where you could stick a water plant. We're running out of real estate around here.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to have a need for the water plant too, obviously,
Yeah.
before you just build one. I did want to know a couple things, Mr. Monroe, if I can ask. First of all, what's the local office for Stantec?
I believe they are in Independence, or are they in downtown Cleveland? They're
So, you know,
here.
they're here to service it, not just
Yes,
a guy in a trailer and
correct,
no resources around them.
correct.
'Cause that's a pretty sizable little contract,
Yeah.
you know, to have nobody attending it.
Yes.
And then I want to ask you about on page 1, you mentioned the fourth bullet item, that we're basing a report which includes number 4, population growth and water usage projections. Can you elaborate on that? Tell me what we would base such projections on and so forth.
So a good example would be our largest bulk customer, rural Lorraine County Water Authority. They obviously have their records of, you know, in the last 5 years, how many new services they've put in each year. You know, I know talking with Mr. Waldecker, they have, you know, a couple years ago, they put in over 300 new services. And those are all new construction homes that is getting built. So looking at that, making conservative projections as far as growth, but based on their needs as well. Again, speaking of rural Lorraine County Water Authority, their Miller Road pump station, they're currently in design to expand that, to make that larger, just because of the needs that they have in their system.
Well, we
So-
talked about a larger pipe going to it in the past couple meetings.
Yes, absolutely. And so you know, once their design is completed, they'll provide us with a kind of a schedule of how they plan to implement their project, but that's going to increase capacity, you know, what their demand is. So those are a couple of the examples when we look at the growth. I know that we're, you know, starting to see, like in the Lorco sewer system, Mr. Abram reported last meeting on some of the new developments that are being built. A lot of those homes are located in our service territory for water. So again, those are when we talk about population growth and water use projections, that's the component. Another component of that is when we look at economic development in the service area. And so that's every area we service. And we know in Lorraine County that there has been several discussions that we've been involved with on large industrial users that are very water intensive. And so we want to be prepared that if we have to act quickly on increasing our capacity, that we already have all the planning, and we've done this on our time as opposed to our backs against a wall. And
I gotcha. That's a good explanation, because one of my concerns, and I'm sure I saw Mr. Ricky perk up a little down there, would be like, we don't want to go on a you know, conquest of adventure, you know, type of thing. We would want to know that whatever this new demand is real and imminent, not like, you know, field of dreams, you know, type of thing. Build it and they will come. Sort of the other way, when you know they're coming, then you would build it, is what you just
yes,
explained.
absolutely. And it's, again, looking at alternate locations to build a second water filtration plant, but also looking at the property that we are acquiring directly adjacent to our existing water filtration plant, and having some preliminary planning done for that, so that we, again, if we need to add capacity immediately, we can do something adjacent to our existing plant. And again, there's nothing off the table right now. We want to make sure we look at all of the global options, but there may be a scenario that's talked about in the plan that is expanding this water filtration plant and building a second water filtration plant. So those are the types of things we want to at least explore from a strategic standpoint.
Right. Obviously, as you indicated in your first response, you'd want to have an idea what you're going to do if the demand comes. But in terms of building anything, I don't think you want to get started before you know something's there
Absolutely.
and incurring the debt and so on. Because then, what do you do with it if it doesn't come to pass?
Well, and it's a good point, because in a situation where there is a large industrial user that's water intensive, it is not prudent for us to saddle all of our ratepayers with debt for that one user. That's where, specialized agreements come into place, funding that may be available. So again, we have to be very strategic about that.
Okay, I noticed you were gesturing towards the southwest. Is there any?
No, it's just Lorraine County to the south.
Okay. But yes, that was one that Mr. Ricky brought up, and I had the same basic questions. Okay, we have a proposed motion. Would someone like to make it?
Is there a motion?
I'll make it. I move to authorize the CUE to execute a master services agreement and task order number 1 with Stantec for 2024 comprehensive water master plan in the amount of $277,910.90 plus a 5% contingency for any out of scope items. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Abram. Discussion.
Yeah.
Mr. Ricky.
Is the motion written correctly? Or should it say not to exceed 277,910.90?
It should say not to exceed. Thank you, Mr. Ricky.
I thought that didn't look.
Yes, it should say, it's not a lump sum amount.
No,
It
it
is a
is
not to exceed
not to
amount.
exceed, so it can be something less than that if it so should
Thank
be.
you, Mr. Ricky. I will reread it in that case. Make a new motion. I move to authorize the CUE to execute a master services agreement and task order number 1 with Stantec for the 2024 comprehensive water master plan in an amount not to exceed $277,910.90 plus a 5% contingency for any out of scope items. May I have a second, Mr. Abram?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
No, that I think meets the need.
Okay, thank you for that catch, Mr. Ricky. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. All right, the next item we have is the water filtration plant improvement project, alternative bid items. And here it looks like Mr. Uranich and Mr. Gibney are going to tag team it. So, Mr. Uranich, why don't you start?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when we were in the bidding process for the improvements at the water filtration plant, we had a few other projects that we wanted to consider as part of already having a large construction crew there. And we wanted the ability to see what the price was going to be and make a decision if we wanted to include that at that time. So we bid them as alternate bid items. The problem we discovered is we did not receive any bids on those. It was company policy that they had a bad experience with alternate bid items in the past, because when they had bid on a large project, put all the work into preparing the bid, they received, I think it was like a $50,000 surveying alternate bid item as part of the whole project. So with all the work they had put into doing that, they had a company policy. They were no longer going to bid on those alternate bid items. We took a look at, there was 2 of those projects that we had included, the alternate bids, that we really felt were necessary. And so we had approached Great Lakes Construction to provide a change order quote. So the one project, we had put out bids for that back in 2019. At that time, the bids either came in above the engineer's estimate, more than 10% of the engineer's estimate, or there were significant exceptions included in their bids that at the time we had made the decision to not award that contract. The clear wells 5 and 6 from not the very original clear wells, but from the 1980 expansion, they're exposed on the surface. There's a rubberized sealant on the concrete that is starting to peel up, flake off. It's an item that needs to be addressed. So when we put out the request for that change order, they came back with a price of $643,299, and that was less than the engineer's estimate. The other alternate bid item that we felt was very important. So for the wash water for the filters, we do have the wash water tower. That mainly served the purpose for the original 12 filters that are no longer in service. It doesn't have the volume needed for the larger, newer filters. Eventually, as part of, once we get further into this project, that's going to be coming down. The primary.
Mr. Uranus, let me interrupt you for a
Sure.
second. I didn't realize you were going on to the next item. Let's go back to the second paragraph. So the cost for this change order is $643,299, which is less than the engineer's estimate of $652,776. Was that 652 item estimated in 2019 when the bid was put out, or is it a more recent estimate?
That was a more recent estimate. That was the estimate that he had prepared.
Not
project was bid.
we're not experiencing inflation on these items. What would you estimate is the difference that this item would have been had we awarded it in 2019?
The lowest bid, I believe, came in at 487,000
That sounds pretty
in
close.
2019.
150,000.
But that was
Just-
more than 10% above the engineer's bid, I believe.
And I don't believe that included the same area
No,
because that was just the clear wells. This also includes the settling basins
Yeah,
and the
more.
flock basins
Yes.
as well.
Okay. I just wanted to keep you honest.
yes.
Mr. Ricky,
What generates this large expense? Is it because there's a lot of coordination with operations of the plant, setting up, taking down, or time limits on how long they can have each
No, it's
basin?
basically just, so the areas that the coating is still relatively well attached, it's a very time consuming process to remove the
Mhm. Okay.
original coating, prep the surface,
Okay.
and
I
apply.
didn't know if they were just covering their behinds because of delays, because we are an operating facility, obviously, and I didn't know if us being operating is driving this cost way up.
No, so when we had looked at this project in 2019, we had a couple of companies come out and test various methods of, there was the dustless blasting, water pressure to remove the coating.
Coding,
Any one of the methods that they tried, it just was a very,
time consuming process, okay.
okay, anyone else for Mr. Uranich on that item?
Well, what are we going back with? Are we going back with the same product?
it's a pretty similar product.
Urethane or?
It's really just
Epoxy.
kind of an age thing. I mean, those clear wells were originally
Okay.
sealed in 1980.
So if you get the same life out of the next coating, you'll be happy, even
Right.
being the same coating. I didn't know if the technology's changed, I mean, ODOT still paints bridges, the cement on bridges, and it peels off, every one of them peels off, I don't know exactly how they can justify keep painting them with an epoxy paint, but okay, that's all. I just was curious if there was time requirements that were driving cost here a little bit. Okay, thank you.
All right. Sorry for the diversion, Mr. Uranich. Please begin again with the third paragraph?
Sure. The wash water, as I was saying, we do have the wash water tower. That was for the original 12 filters and doesn't really serve washing the larger, newer filters that we have. That's going to be coming down. The primary source of wash water for the newer filters comes directly out of Clearwell 5 and only Clearwell 5. If for some reason, for either cleaning, if there were having to be repairs to that clear well, we would not have another source of wash water. We consider this a very important redundancy to have. When we were doing a cleaning of the clear wells back in 2015, we could not have a filter wash for 2 days. That's not a very good situation to be in. So what this change order is going to be is making an alternate connection to the wash water pumps. We came up with a plan where we can connect to the high service line finished water to be pumped back through to wash the filters. We view this as something we would have a contingency plan to test occasionally to make sure the valves would be exercised, everything functions. But we feel it's a very important redundant source of wash water that we need to function. So the engineer's estimate for that alternate bid item was $370,272, and the proposal that they presented was almost $367,000. So it did come in below the engineer's estimate again. As we mentioned, we feel this is a very important change to have. If for any reason we had to take that clear well out of service, that would leave us without wash water and cannot function like that.
Mr. Ricky?
Is engineering done on these projects? So they're both engineered. There's no more engineering
Correct.
costs. That's just one thing I was just checking if there's still. I will tell you, as a project manager myself, in the last few years of my career, $1 million worth of change orders before the project starts kind of gives me the willies. That's just something that I'm not real comfortable with.
This is how I would look at it, though, and I absolutely agree. But had we received those bids, they would have been included in our contract. So,
well, and the fact that the engineering is done,
yes,
reassures me that this is not a miss on our part or something we just decided on. This is something we've wanted to do all along. But please understand, $1 million change order is a big nut. Now, we should be able to get cheap money for this as well, correct?
yeah, it's under the same.
It's under the same. It's
Yes.
under the same, but this eats up your 10% contingency or 5%. What do we have on
We
this?
have on those OWDAs, we are required to do 10% per
So,
OWDA guidelines.
on a $32 million project.
It's a little over 2.9 million is
Okay.
what our contingency amount is.
Okay.
So yes, it does. But
Because,
if we were not required to do the 10%, we would have done 5% contingency
Gotcha.
on the.
Okay.
on the
Well,
project.
just understand, I'm not going to stop it from happening. I think this is what we had in mind, but from a operation or from a project management standpoint, it doesn't look real good. John, you probably would agree with that.
Control standpoint.
Yeah, it's
So,
just-
I was going to offer you that word.
There you go. I was looking for the word. You jumped in, but that's all I have to say about it. And
Okay,
I think you understand where I'm coming from. on
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
thank you, Mr. Ricky.
that. Mhm.
All right, Mr.
So what's the,
Abram,
what's the total cost going to be for the entire project? then?
Yeah.
So the entire project was the two original contracts were around 29 million.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And then 10% contingency on that
That's
is 2.9. But these two change orders is going to be $10,016.
So you add that to the 2 million? Or that part?
It would get added, paid out of the contingency. So when the board
Okay, I see.
approved the contract, they approved the contract amounts plus the 10%.
All right.
So,
We have like 1.9 left.
Mhm.
correct.
Yeah, that's,
Correct.
Okay, that's all I
that
have.
still
Thank you.
leaves us some money.
Yes.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Abram. Mr. Monroe, related, is it true to say that relative to the items we spoke about earlier, expanding the water plant and all this kind of thing, were it not for those plans, we would probably be doing more than this scope of work now, just because it would be time to do that, but we won't do that now because we have plans that we may build considerably onto the water plant in the future. So in a way, we're putting off some expenditures that we would otherwise have had in the same $29 million project.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes, it is.
Can you elaborate at
Yeah,
all? Mr. Ricky is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, basically, for instance, when we talk about expanding the plant, we're expanding the plant, we're adding, new filters, like this improvement project, we're decommissioning original 12 filters, building 4 new filters. So, this is something that we identified as an issue back in 2019. We wanted to get out in front of. We put it out to bid, and it didn't work out. So we were close, if you remember, we thought we were going to have this improvement project started sooner. And so that's when we made the decision that we would include that as part of the improvement project. So yeah, I think there's certain, I guess if you want to say economies of scale on a project this size,
Yeah.
that we would incur.
Well, I'll take back a little of the criticism about $1 million worth of extras, but getting the bids up front at this point should help. These projects can be done in concurrence. Thank you. In concurrence with the rest of the project, correct? There's
Yes.
nothing that says this has to be done at the end of the project.
No.
So that's good that we're pushing now, get it in there so they can plan accordingly. And when the time presents itself or there are delays that we cause because of operational issues that we have to maintain in the middle of summer, if you got a lot of things running, that they can work on some of this stuff maybe too, which could, minimize delays or those type of things that could possibly happen. So again, getting the change orders up front, there's some plus to that. And again, if you would have told me you didn't have any of this engineered, I'd be chewing on you. But the fact that you had this in mind all along makes it much more
Just
palatable.
real quick on your, your comment about, possible delays because of operationals, our bid specs actually accounted for that.
Okay.
So they were very tight bid specs that Jack put together in coordination with HDR, that they sequencing and maintenance of operations, they have to be done at off-peak hours. And so their contract price accounts for those times where they may have to do it at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Gotcha. Well, I remember the waste plant and how we had to coordinate some of those big valve changes had to be done when all of the stars aligned. And I'm sure there's going to be some parts of this project that are going to have to be done when the stars align. Same type of
Connections
thing.
to the settled water for the new filters. Those are going to be during the off-peak season, during the
right.
winter when the flows are lower,
Right.
so that we can shut
So-
the plant down, not be concerned with drawing down our reserves. And
Yeah,
Mr.
that's fine.
I don't know, Mr. Monroe or Mr. Urinich, whoever is best equipped to answer this. Could we also say fairly that the improvements that we are doing actually would tend to rate our capacity higher than it would otherwise be, which will give us some cushion for the potential for a large customer to come in. So you would have a greater cushion than you now have. Is that fair to say?
Fire one.
We're having a fire alarm or?
Jason?
Oh, you know what?
You can sign it.
There was talking about the possibility of tornado warnings. Somebody checked their phone and
I don't see any alerts.
I didn't see any either.
Mm-mm.
No, but that's our trouble.
Dorothy
box on
just flew by.
our-
Yeah, right. Uh,
But like.
Okay, so
Okay, so
anyway,
about
to my
capacity.
point there,
I'm sorry.
are we kind of getting a little extra capacity out of the existing plant just by doing this?
These change orders,
Yeah.
or it's definitely going to safeguard a lot of things. Like I said, if, the way the plan is set up now, if we were to lose Clearwell 5 for any reason, we would be completely out of business because we wouldn't have any backup to where we could wash the filters. So I guess it definitely is on the redundancy side, safeguarding that. Doesn't necessarily get us any additional capacity from that point. The new filters will.
Yes.
Okay, I just had a notice on my screen that my mic was muted.
That's on the tablet.
Oh, okay,
These mics are on.
okay. Sorry for all the apparent
Yes.
irregularities
Yes.
here tonight, but did we figure out what that beeping was?
It's the fire
Here's the phone
system.
line went down, line one.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the modem line for the fire alarm?
Yeah, so we have a backup cellular, so we're protected, but it'll probably keep notifying us until that line comes back up.
Okay. Hopefully we're not in the early stages of a fire.
No.
Okay. Uh, So no motion requested on that. CUE will execute these change orders in the future.
Yes.
Okay, so now it's Mr. Urich's favorite time of the,
Meeting here.
Do the video? Yeah. Okay.
favorite time for project update.
We will start the project updates out since we no longer have any update on the commercial vehicle wash system. Chairman at the last meeting had asked if we could put together a video for that. So I will share our screen here that we will put a video up keeping our vehicles clean. Staff, the ease of use, staff does feel that it's an easy system to utilize. We do have the tracking that we have set up with our keypads or our proximity cards that we utilize for access control. So overall, the system is working very well.
Okay, and we feel that there isn't any undue amount of operational involvement with the system, but there must be routine maintenance, and how's that going to be handled by staff and
Yes.
so on?
So Mr. Komevsky, before he was out on his leave, him and staff did receive all the training from Hydrochem in North Bay regarding the system. Obviously, we have the chemical. We received the chemical, the two chemicals in 250-gallon totes. We've been using the system for about 6 weeks now. We've been using it pretty regularly, and we have not gone through a lot of the product. So
Yeah.
I anticipate it to be very economical when it comes to that. But as far as the equipment itself, they outlined what the preventative maintenance is, hours of how many hours of operation and whatnot. And as a good practice, we will have Hydrochem provide us with a proposal on a service contract to come annually to
Tune everything up?
Yes.
Okay, and I guess we will want to have whatever procedures are newly introduced to the organization codified in our procedures manual as part of our quality initiative. So all holders of the manual get this section to remove this or add this section, so on and so forth.
Yes,
That's what I would expect that we're doing.
we are, and the same with our SOPs and our manual is we have revisions in there. So there's revision tracking. So you don't just take a page out and throw it out. That remains with the update, and then the revision date is in there.
Okay,
So that way there's a backtracking, so to speak.
sounds like we are having our own deluge outside right now.
We are.
If there was a fire, this would be handy right now.
Yes.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Urinich? Oh, you do have a number of them, but they're mostly completed, it looks like.
For the additional storage building, that is officially closed out. Obviously, that was all working. All the punch list items have been addressed. For the power plant update, no major changes there. Demolition continues on the north side of Lake Road. ETL design services, no update. The water filtration plant improvements, we are having the pre-construction meeting April 3rd. We're looking forward to that, really get this project moving. For the inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometer, the staff is going to be submitting their initial display of competencies. That's the part of the process they have to go through with the Ohio EPA to become certified to perform the tests on the drinking water. They are submitting that this week, getting their application in to schedule the tests. They've been doing the wastewater and the industrial pretreatment samples. They're feeling pretty confident with the machine. As I'd mentioned in the method development, the drinking water tests are actually a bit easier because the consistency of the samples is staying pretty similar. They're not going to see those same variances as far as pH, any metals, things that you would find in either wastewater or more specifically the industrial samples. So they're feeling very comfortable with that. For the SCADA communication system upgrades, the part that had failed before, the fiber optic converters, those are on order. They're scheduled to be delivered the third week of May and installed. Our engineering services staff has been working on the dedicated server room, the changes we wanted to make, knocking out the wall near where the closet that the servers are currently housed, creating a room that we can have more of a controlled environment as far as the HVAC, the air handling, making sure that it's only fresh air. Eliminate being in close proximity to the filters where you get some of the corrosivity from the chlorine gas that is used as part of the process. Obviously when the plant was built, there was not the same, I guess, need or requirements for computer servers. And, the plant wasn't originally designed with that in mind. Obviously where we're at today, a lot more is computer based, and having your own dedicated room is really part of what we need to keep that reliability there.
Mr. Urinich, you mentioned the server room and, how servers have, come to be our masters, but what is the plan, supposing, sun's coming out again after the deluge. What is the plan for, if there was, say, a fire and, that server room was not, accessible or usable? What do we have as far as a plan in terms of alternative server location for contingencies such as that, or even something happens during construction, whatever?
Well, the initial reaction would be the same as if we had lost the SCADA system. All of the PLCs that control the individual pieces of equipment revert to what their last known value is. Running the plant in manual, that's one of the things that is part of the contingency plan. To meet the requirements that the EPA has as far as disasters like that, we have specific scenarios that we have to have outlined how we're going to handle those, and loss of SCADA system is definitely one of those. It'd be a matter of going to each individual chemical feeder, making sure that you are setting it at the location. Obviously, those are all relatively remote to where the server equipment is.
Our plans call out very easily too. Well, first of all, that room would likely contain IT and OT type equipment. Any IT type equipment is going to be backed up amongst our various servers in conjunction. The OT side would go directly to that contingency plan. And one of the first things, if we have a full loss of SCADA, which this would be identical incidents to that, is we would automatically have a second operator in, because we'd have to collect a lot of data for the EPA,
Right.
things that are not being cataloged automatically, as well as those manual controls. We would have multiple people involved at that point in time, so we can have individuals focus on task at hand. One person on operations, one person may need to deal with ETLs, laboratory collection, etc.
Mr. Monroe?
And I would
add
just,
to that?
from an operating standpoint, that's absolutely spot on. From the IT side or OT side, and a disaster recovery type of mindset is if we lose a server completely, in this case of a physical fire, it is backed up. So it'd be a matter of a new physical server and restoring from backup. So it can be a relatively quick turnaround as far as that goes, while they have implemented their contingency plans.
Have we considered things like a hot spare in a remote location that is connected to the network, so that you could just fail over to that? In other words, while we're doing this kind of work, it's all well and great, but like somebody accidentally, trips with a, pot of coffee and pours it on the server and everything goes out, and then your millions of dollars there's nothing wrong with the pumps or the filters or anything, but you can't really control it. The typical thing that I'm familiar with is live hot failover system.
And that's something that we're discussing with SOS, our integrator, on the OT side, the operating technology. On the IT side, we already have that. So we have that. If you recall, back in 2018, we installed fiber optics that connected our administration building with our wastewater plant and our water filtration plant. We have redundant ring set up, several pairs of fiber, and we set up with off-site disaster recovery on the IT side. So that's all part of making sure that we don't have this issue that we experienced a couple months ago.
Okay, well, just sort of a model to keep in mind as we, go to great expenditures on hardware for, the mechanical aspects of our facility. We want to make sure that our control systems don't become weak links.
Yes.
Okay, any comments from anyone on any of that? Okay, let's move on to CUE report, Mr. Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a couple items to report on this evening. The first item is on Wednesday, March 27th, late in the day, Wednesday, the 27th, we had some residents that experienced some sewer backups on Lear Road in the 600 block area. As of right now, we have 3 confirmed. We suspect a couple others, but we have not made contact with those residents yet. We haven't been successful in contacting them. But we have initiated a claim with our insurance company because we want to make sure things get taken care of expeditiously for the residents that had to go through this. There was a backup. We are still looking at this, but the main cause was related to an issue that the city of Avon had with their pump station on Lear Road. That it was down for quite a while. When the station came back up, both pumps turned on and started pumping the entire well down. So we got all of that flow all at once. And overloaded the manhole where it enters into our system. But we
So
have
it's surcharge to the ground, or
yeah, it basically the path of least resistance was in the laterals of those homes, and so that's where it went, because we verified that via the cleanouts. We could see where the sewage had come all the way up the cleanouts out in the yards. So we've obviously been in contact with Avon. Like I said, while we sort that out with Avon, we want to make sure the customers are taken care of quickly. So our insurance company will be contacting Avon for their information. But we also discovered that there is some potential design flaws in that section there that we are working. We're going to work to fix. And the bigger picture is, in speaking with Avon, with the growth that they have in their city, they are probably going to need more capacity at that pump station to account for their increased development. And so it may not just be fixing the design error that we see right now. It may be doing a whole project that's going to upsize the main and everything. So again, we're looking at that. We are meeting with Avon tomorrow morning.
this is wastewater.
This is
Okay.
wastewater.
Does it make any sense, first of all, to go with a new pipe that doesn't go through Avon Lake collection system and goes down the tracks to somewhere where it gets closer to the sewage treatment plant over here, instead of the current system, which apparently sends it through to the Walker Road interceptor?
Yes, that's correct. That pump station actually sends it in 2 directions. There are 2 pumps that send it down Lear to Walker, and then there are 2 pumps that send it along the tracks in Avon on the south side of the tracks all the way over to Jaycox, and it comes in at Jaycox. But again, we're going to
If
be
you want to
looking
really
at that
make
as
it
well.
robust, maybe you need to have a large pipe that just heads straight down the tracks, the Miller Road, or, you know, somewhere around the Geon plant and comes to the sewage treatment plant, because, you know, I can understand why, when there was nothing built in Avon, that may have seemed like a good idea to just accept their flow right into our system, but there's still plenty of growth to come in that area in Avon Lake, and you certainly don't want to have a repeat of this situation. So it sounds like there's at least a conceptual design project and evaluation in the future to make a determination, but my gut tells me you're going to want to run it down alongside the tracks in Avon and let them maintain what's in their city limits, and then we pick up when it comes into Avon Lake. But, you know, I would say you really don't want to use your rather small collection system in Avon Lake to take the rather large potential demand that Avon may represent. But it's my, you know, seat of the pants analysis of
No,
it.
thank you, and I do appreciate that. And another component of that is, if you recall on Krebs Road, the sewer does not go all the way across Krebs. There is a section of Krebs Road that there is no sewer. There are a couple of homes that are still on septic systems. And currently Mr. Gadar and Mr. Larson are working with senior students at Cleveland State University that are mechanical engineers on a senior design project for them to design that sewer. So that would be something that we would, you know, with the close proximity to that station, we would want to include into that. And this represents a good reason why years ago we established the trunk sanitary sewer fee. And you know, the money that we do have in that fund to fund these types of improvements. And of course, just like we have historically done since 1984, is when new development happens, they pay their fair share. So
It absolutely is part of that, and it may be that Avon has to institute its own.
they already, any flow that they send to us, they charge the same trunk sanitary sewer fee and then remit that to us. So they do follow in line. So
Okay, and they keep their accounts current.
yes, they do. We've worked out a pretty efficient system with them that because they submit the plans to us on new development in our sewer area for review. That's our tracking of the trunk sanitary sewer fee. We double check that their calculations, and they collect the money, and we invoice them twice a year for those based on how we operate it. And
Well, hopefully,
they are current.
in light of the, you know, student involvement in this, Professor Gadar is a strict schoolmaster, and don't just say, hey, it looks good. They look like
No.
pipes to me,
No,
you know, that
he's-
kind of thing.
he is a stickler for that.
I would be very, very strict about that. Some of us, even in the legal profession, are aware of student design projects, such as in Miami, that didn't work out as well as we might have.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any more questions on anyone have any?
That's the only thing you have?
No, I have two more items. Next item is another sewer issue, just more as an information item. Pin Oak Parkway, we did experience a backup up there about a week and a half ago. And we are looking at a couple of our industrial dischargers. And once we have found the source of discharges, we will act accordingly to our regulations. There will be fines and cost recovery involved because we have several hours of labor involved and use of our equipment and cleaning that. So again, once we have that finalized, we will update the board on that.
Would you repeat that item again? Because I'm not sure I grasped it.
On Pin Oak Parkway, we had one of the properties experienced a backup, and when we went up there, we found what appeared to be like an oil type of substrate that was in the pipe, but there also seemed to be some sort of polymer that was in the pipe. And anyone that knows anything about polymers, polymer is a coagulant, so it was quite a mess. And that was what was causing this property to back up. We spent several days.
Well, there's a place over there, Advanced something or other, that is a polymer manufacturer.
There's Applied Specialties
Applied
is,
Specialties.
I think, who you're referring to. And then there's also Chemtron, which is there as well. So again, there's a new bearing manufacturer that's there that was formerly a cardboard manufacturer. So we actually inspected and toured that whole bearing facility to ensure that they weren't discharging any type of oil, and they were fine. There was no issues, but it took us so many days to get the sewer clean enough that we could even get our camera in there. So we're just now getting the camera in there to get this investigated.
And for everyone's, let's say, edification, a coagulant is something that thickens things and makes it like where it doesn't flow, and that causes blockage, like, you might have in your arteries, hopefully not, but that is what you're describing. And to me, it sounds like an illegal discharge.
Absolutely. And
It's covered in our regulations.
yes, it is.
Okay, so that could be like a fine and costs.
Yes, it will.
Okay. I expect that you'll be strict
Yes,
on your own part.
absolutely. And the final item I have to report on is received a notification from the Auditor of State regarding a recent preliminary audit that they performed on 2 of our projects. They were sewer separation projects. Apparently, there was a complaint that was filed with the Auditor of State, and the bottom line is we provided all of the information as we would in any audit, and we did receive a case closing memo from the Auditor of State that they found no evidence that substantiated any claim of any wrongdoing. And that is a testament to the way that Mr. Gadar and his staff and the rest of our staff handle our projects. And I say to staff all the time, when you do things the right way, you don't have anything to worry about. And this is another example. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention, that this matter is closed.
Okay, well, that's good news.
And that is all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Monroe. Next item is member reports. Any members with reports? Mr. Ricky.
Yes, last Tuesday, I attended the Building and Utilities Committee that Councilwoman Gentry chairs. And a couple things that just came out of that quickly. Brightspeed Cable is in the area, and they are going to be putting in fiber optics. And I bring this up as an informational item. Our locator is going to be busy because they're doing a large part of Avon Lake is going to be have fiber optics installed. So they're going to be using everything that's underground will have to be oopsed. So just a heads up that our guys are going to be busy identifying, locating our utilities in the tree lawns and all. So that was good. I compliment Mrs. Gentry on her running of her first committee meeting. She did a very professional job, and I look forward to working with her in the future. This used to be the Sewer Committee. It is now called the Building and Utilities Committee. I had to figure out what that was first because I remember the Sewer Committee didn't remember this committee. But I will be following up with them as our representative at any of their future meetings. Last thing I have here, oh, by the way, CenturyTel has changed names, just so you know. Brightspeed is now CenturyTel is now Brightspeed. So it's Brightspeed that's going to be doing the fiber optics, and they're using a third party, which is pretty typical of those guys to use a third party to do their undergrounds, their directional boring and everything else. So just FYI there. I also received a phone call from Mr. Tom Brock. He's the owner of Avon Lake Printing, which has been sold and is right down the street here from our office here. He wanted to just inform me that the printing company that's there now is changing locations, and he is putting that property up for sale, and just wanted to make sure the utilities department, based on our water bill and how we've been working on different properties, he wanted to make sure that if there was any interest by the utilities department that we're made aware that property is now on the market or will be on the market here the next day or two. And I forwarded that information to Mr. Monroe just for information purposes. That is all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. You've been quite busy. Anyone else with any?
You know, Mr. Ricky, we shouldn't be called Utilities Department. We're Avon Lake Regional Water.
I apologize for that. I stand corrected.
I
Okay,
have a question.
Mrs. Schnabel.
I just was saving it for now. So when we were talking last week about, or 2 weeks ago, about our finances with Mr. Logan, do we have an update on moving forward with requesting that the city invest some of our money with Star?
We do not have an update tonight, but Mr. Logan did transmit a memorandum to the finance director, Mr. Widman,
Okay.
that outlined the steps that we would like to take as far as having our money invested in Star Ohio, cleaning up a couple of the items as far as the banking,
Right.
in authorized users and whatnot. So it is in the works. I hope that by next meeting we do have some update.
Right. I imagine the banking stuff will take a while to sort out, but I, like, as far as users and whatnot, but I was thinking like, to get the money invested ASAP.
Yes, and that is the priority.
All right. Going once, going twice. Okay, next item is public speakers. People in the audience, anything to add? People online?
No, they're not.
Mum's the word. Okay, the next item then is call for an executive session. I'll make the motion. I move to meet in executive session as allowed by ORC Section 121.22 G1 and G3 to discuss employment and pending or imminent court actions, and to include the CUE, the CUO, and a representative from Mansur Gavin. May I have a second?
I have second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Mr. Abram. Any discussion? Mr. Monroe?
I would just add that I do not anticipate there to be any formal action by the board after the executive session.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Any other discussion? Okay, this will be a roll call vote. Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Schnabel?
Yes.
Mr. Abram?
Aye.
Chairman votes yes. That will conclude the open portion of our meeting tonight. Thank you all for coming, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I will not be here, but Mr. Rush's able hands will take the gavel at that time. So, again, everyone stay safe, enjoy spring, and hopefully the eclipse shines on Avon Lake's heads in the coming week.